There we go. Okay, perfect. Share screen. Yes, I can. Here it is. And sound.
De vivir, poeta Ho Chi Minh, que golpea de Vietnam a toda la humanidad. Ningún cañón borrará el surco de tu arrozal, el derecho de vivir en paz. Indochina es el lugar más allá del ancho mar, donde revientan la flor con genocidio y napalm. La luna es una explosión que funde todo el clamor, el derecho de vivir en paz. Indochina es el lugar más allá del ancho mar, donde revientan la flor con genocidio y napalm. La luna es una explosión que funde todo el clamor, el derecho.
Okay, well, you get the gist of it. I've got in the document a brief description. I'll just read from it. Victor Jara was a Chilean poet, singer, songwriter, and political activist who was tortured and murdered in the National Stadium of Chile in 1973, specifically September the 16th, 1973, when Augusto Pinochet violently overthrew, with U.S. support, the elected government of Salvador Allende. That occurred on September 11th, 1973. September 11th in Latin America has a little different connotation than September 11th in this country. I think very briefly, I don't want to give a soapbox and give a long lecture, but I think there's a great context here in terms of the immigration issue overall. In many ways, some of the roots of it lie in a semi-neocolonialist attitude of the United States toward Latin America. Pinochet was one of the many Latin American military dictators that we supported and oppressed the marginalized communities in the region. We refused to recognize their non-alignment or their populist movements, and we helped suppress them. And then that created a lot of situations now which are culminating in a lot of these immigration problems. And if you look, I won't pull it back up. The picture I put in the program is a picture of one of the Pinochet, young lieutenants, and that was in the stadium where they had a lot of people that were held after that. A lot of college students. If we had been there in Chile at that time, many of you, many of us, we would have been in that stadium. So to shift gears a little bit, to go back to Megan, if you can get us settled again, Megan, a little bit with a brief meditation, I would appreciate that.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this space, and thank you for joining us tonight here as we gather in beloved community. I invite you to sit back in your chair and take a deep breath. Close your eyes for a moment. Maybe count the specks on the ceiling. And kind of center yourself. Take a few deep breaths. Tonight, we're going to take a few moments to honor the call to acknowledge our common humanity and embrace all of our fellow humans, our global brothers and sisters and non-binary pals. Tonight, we're going to talk about some of the more nefarious forces at play in the world that don't always honor the humanity of others. So in this moment, I ask you to call your strength to yourself as we prepare to explore this topic. This is a safe space when we gather in beloved community and answer the calls of the world to uphold our principles that unite us, and acknowledging and honoring the dignity of all human people. Deep breath. All right, everybody, it's time to get to work.
Oh, thank you, Megan. She always does a beautiful job with that. I'm not going to go over what's called the important information and so forth. It's in your chat. Megan's also helping with putting that in there. But if there's if any of that is helpful, please just review that quickly. If you want to turn off your audio, please. We're very privileged to have Bobby join us tonight. And if we don't get to anything else, I just want to have a discussion, listen to Bobby, find out more about what's going on with courts and ports on the border and the aftermath of the legislation and so forth. So, but with no further ado, I do want to highlight, I would be in trouble if I didn't do this, the year-end celebration coming up. And again, there's a link in the program, and sure Megan will put it in the chat in a moment. On Wednesday, November the 29th at 6:30 p.m. Join your Texas State Action Network, TXUUJM, as we gather to reflect back on 2023 from our 10th anniversary in January to the current 44th legislative session. Yeah, it's a special session. And the border trip, we'll talk about that in particular, to celebrate our biggest year yet. So do look at your calendar and look at that, and we encourage you to join us there. Okay, Fabi is the Immigration Education Advocacy Manager at Texas Impact. She is a formerly undocumented individual, daughter of immigrants, and a law school graduate with experience in immigration law. Fabi earned her JD from Northeastern University School of Law and a BA from Rhode Island College. Her passion for immigration advocacy stems from both having firsthand and professional experience with the immigration legal system. She's currently based in the Valley, the Rio Grande Valley, but grew up in Rhode Island, has lived and worked in New York City and Los Angeles, and she's excited about managing courts and ports and ready to continue to empower others to advocate for human immigration policies. So, Fabi, I would love to turn it over to you and have you talk about courts and ports, what's happening on the border, and maybe about at that time we can take a break and see if people have questions and discussion, and then we can continue with looking at what's happening currently with the legislation and what we might can do or how we have to deal with that. So, welcome, Fabi.
Thank you for inviting me and for having me here. I'm happy to be here with you all. A group of UUs, I think y'all know, I see Reverend Ada here. And so Courts and Ports was something that I joined Texas Impact to help kind of revive, or after COVID, it kind of died down a bit. So I moved down here to the Valley last November, actually. So it's been a year already. And a lot has happened this year with immigration, both at the state level and national levels, which is a constant in the immigration world. But particularly down here in the border, I think it's even more pronounced, or like more prevalent. It's seen with the communities that are living here, especially with what's happening now at the state level, and the shelters, the faith-based groups, the community that involves mixed status immigration families that have mixed status in the family. So not everyone has a status. So, and as the group that was here, was able to witness and experience going out for lunch in the community and seeing all the different policing groups that were there for lunch as well, including Border Patrol, just I think regular DPS, just different uniforms. And I think at one point it felt like it was a lot of them and a few community members. So just thinking about the complexities that adds to what it means to live in the border communities. So Courts and Ports is, I like to say it's an educational immersive witness program. So it's 2 days, and I have planned it out so that the 2 days that you're here, we're doing pretty much back to back, going to places, meeting people, talking to people. So part of it is going to shelters and doing a little bit of what they do alongside them and learning from them. But it's not a mission trip, but we do kind of go and help, and it's part of the experience and the witness. The educational piece, we have the opportunity for ProBar, the legal organization down here, to give our groups a presentation of the overall legal work that they do, and a big breakdown of the immigration system, including minors, because they do also provide services to unaccompanied children. Something that I have kind of helped to get into this program is having Border Patrol give our groups presentations. And it gives our groups, the opportunity to ask questions respectfully, but it is a difficult 2 days, I would say. It's a lot happens, a lot that you see and hear. We do go to Matamoros, the asylum encampment that is near the riverbank there. That's really, I think, the most from every group that has come down. The feedback that I keep getting that is kind of one of the most powerful experiences, because no matter what I say to describe it, there's nothing like just going there and seeing how people are essentially kind of stuck there because of the US policies around not letting people go and request asylum at ports of entries. Now they have to request asylum using the CBP One app on a phone to kind of request an appointment so that you can go to a bridge and then be processed by border protections or patrol to request asylum. And so that's kind of a new thing that was rolled out this January. Um, so it's a lot of different pieces. And one of the other things that we do that is important is going to immigration court and just witnessing some of the proceedings that migrants have to go through when they are processed and led into this country. They have to continue going to court and fighting their immigration case, look for an attorney, pay for an attorney. And a big part of all of that is just seeing how complex the system is and seeing again the dehumanization of it all, which is kind of I think it's the underlying common denominator in all of it, and the policies, even all the way up to immigration court. So it's 2 days that are packed with a lot of things, and I think our group that was recently here a couple of weeks ago, we had a debrief session, and a few of them have said that they're still kind of processing it all. So my overall hope is that that is exactly what it is, that you come and learn and witness, and then come back to your communities and keep spreading the realities of what it is, because now you've witnessed it and you can't unsee what you have seen. I know Reverend Aaron was able to testify at one of the committee hearings against one of the bills, but that isn't the only thing you can do. There's lots more that can be done. And looking forward, I know that once the laws are signed and will be going into effect most likely early next year, that now it's more important now than ever for community to look out for each other, and to participate in knowing your rights and knowing how to help someone who ends up detained and they don't know who to reach out to. Like, that'll be important as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions. It's difficult for me to describe what Courts and Ports is, because it's yes, you come and do and witness a lot, but once you're here, it feels like it's a lot more than that. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
No, Fabi, Diane and I actually went, I think I mentioned this to you, about a year and a half ago before you got here, Bobby and Rob. Yeah, there were a lot of more memorable things. One of the things that really stuck with me when we went over to Matamoros, and actually they had kind of cleared out the encampment at that point. It had been very, very crowded, they explained, but they had done a really good job in Matamoros finding some homes. But a lot of people were still there, they're just waiting. They didn't have the internet application or the phone application. They had lists of paper. And people, they would get lost and they ignored and so forth. So a lot of people were waiting there. And you would look at a woman on the Mexican side of Matamoros looking across the river. And then you'd realize, in 15 minutes, I'm going to be walking back over across that river and going home. And, it eats at you to see all that.
Yes, part of I like to say that probably when you were there was the metering that started all that, and then the migrant protection protocols that further made people waiting in Mexico. So the CBP1 app, I've heard different people coin it different terms, like it's just an extension of the same, just now it's like using the technology-based metering, essentially. And what is important about all of this is that certain criminal organizations have taken a hold of this and have the kidnappings have risen and the level of violence has risen against migrants who once they get a CBP1 appointment, it's been known that certain groups will find out and extort them for money. And if they don't pay up, they'll even kidnap people, including children. So it's kind of the US government is putting people in these situations, unknowingly or knowingly. So a lot of what I heard in committee hearings this legislative session was legislators kind of saying things like, well, I don't know why they would cross the river and not at a port of entry. I don't understand why they would do that unless they have something to hide or unless they're a criminal. And it's like, well, if you knew anything about the realities, it's that people are crossing the river because they are scared. They're tired of waiting in conditions that are inhumane. They don't have running water. They don't have electricity. They barely have food by organizations on the ground that are local providing donated stuff. There's no there is no there's no big NGOs assisting. Everyone that is assisting these camps, it's small organizations. And so the reason why people decide to cross the river and not wait on the CBP1 app is because they're trying to escape danger. Some of them have just waited long periods of time and they get desperate. And I have met people here that have told me I was scared to wait for my CBP1 appointment because I see everyone getting kidnapped. So I just decided to take my chance and cross the river. And when they cross, they are giving themselves up to Border Patrol to be processed. So that's kind of the big things that I kept hearing in the legislature committees. And it's really frustrating to hear that the border is open when it really isn't. So yeah.
You get a sense of a lot of people, the statistics say that Border Patrol is having more stops with the flow of immigrants coming in this country is just burgeoning and burgeoning and burgeoning, and hence the references to an invasion and the like. Do you get a sense of any real, I mean, I've heard on the other hand that crime in the border communities is the lowest anywhere in the country. That there's no real threat from the immigrants. Do you see any sense of chaos and criminality and the like that you hear in the media?
I'll start at back in May when Title 42 expired. Texas Impact had Bobby, some of you might know him. Bobby came down, a camera person, and we were gonna talk to folks down here to see what the end of Title 42 meant to them, to their organizations, how they were preparing, because the media was saying that there was gonna be a big influx of migrants and an invasion. And the days after Title 42 ended, we saw and documented. Texas Impact has that documentary, the video we took, and I think B and my colleagues are working on releasing some of the footage, maybe in the future. But it was more of a focus on talking to the different folks here, the shelters, the NGOs, the welcoming center, and we saw the normal day-to-day. We even went to like a couple of ports of entries here in Brownsville and McAllen, and the tourist bridge, and we saw just the regular day-to-day tourist people going back and forth shopping. The ports of entry I think those days it was raining, so it was pretty quiet actually. At most of them, especially in the morning, it was pouring. So there was no influx of migrants at that time, as the media had kind of alerted that there would be. And until this day, I'm not here in this section that I have seen influx of migrants or folks coming in. And yes, that is a big misconception that people like to say that it's a dangerous area. However, I would say that it is an over-policed community. We have National Guard members here, we have DPS, we have Border Patrol agents. And I think at one point we had the Army that was sent here after Title 42 ended. I think they sent active Army troops. And I have seen state troopers from other states like Florida on the highway. And so I think that it is an over-policed community. But in terms of the influx of migrants, I have not experienced that.
We had a question in the chat about family separation. Can you comment on what's happening there with families being separated still?
Yes, that is something that is happening, and it's Border Patrol has said that they're separating. So men go to different facilities than women and children. And so that can be the cause of separation that they're citing. And I have earlier in the year did meet people at the welcoming center who were actually it was men who had been detained and separated from their wife and child. And the men that I met had been already processed and given their notice to appear. And they didn't want to leave Brownsville without their child and wife. And so they were concerned as to like, when are they going to be released? I don't even know what detention center they're being held at. And so the Welcoming Center and the other organizations here were trying to figure out, where maybe they could be. But I think some of them stayed in the area, and I think a couple of them waited, and they would wait for their wives and children to be released, and would end up being released. Some of them here in the same area in Brownsville, and then they would head out together to where they were going. But now I think Border Patrol has stated that they are now working more on detaining folks and sending them out to the interior of the United States. So not necessarily staying in the border areas. So it's something that would complicate if a family were to be separated for that manner and someone ended up detained in the interior of the United States and then being released from there versus being released here in the border area. So it is happening. It's not as prevalent. I think it does happen, but here in the Welcoming Center, the numbers have actually slowed down these past couple of months now. They used to see upwards of 500 people a day, and I think now they're seeing maybe like 200 people a day. So it's gotten slower. And they think that's because of different policies that have now also taken effect, such as Mexico deporting people back to their countries of origin from the southern parts of Mexico. So they're not letting migrants even reach like our border. So Mexico has kind of ramped that up. And they think that that's part of the reason why we're seeing lower numbers in this area since that was announced that it would take place or would take effect.
Well, if anybody else has any other questions, please speak up, or you can put them in the chat and we can relay them to Fabi. Can you talk about the welcome centers or the welcome center? And I don't know, when we were there were a couple of different ones and how all that works and so forth.
Yes, and I see a hand raised. Would you like me to
Yes,
answer your question, Dale, or
No,
answer
go to
Jan's?
Jan, somebody else. Jan, what do you have?
Hi, I was just gonna ask if someone could put the names of some of the groups that we might be able to donate to. Some of us weren't able to go on a trip. We need to stay in our home area. But it'd be nice to know who's really helping folks who are waiting on in Matamoros in the camps. So we have TXUUJM has worked with one of the pastors near McAllen, I think, and or sorry, Laredo, but not in Brownsville. So if you have recommendations for groups who could use some donations, that would be very, very nice to know.
Yes, I can definitely share that information. One of the main groups here in Brownsville is the Brownsville Welcoming Center. I think they started back in 2018, 2019, and they are comprised of, I think, retired teachers, educators that came together when they started seeing migrants just being dropped off at the bus station here in Brownsville. And that's kind of what prompted them to step in and ask questions about where they're going and how they got there, and started realizing that the Border Patrol was kind of just dropping them off with nothing. And so they now have a building in Brownsville across from the bus station that the city rents out to them. And they work together with another pastor who will help them to get supplies and clothing, food to the encampment in Matamoros. So that's one way. They do have an Amazon wish list that I can share. I know also that it's easier for them to, for example, for food, to just buy it in Mexico so that they don't have to cross the food over, because if they cross things over, then the Mexican officials will sometimes charge them like more than the food is even worth, or the things that they bring are worth. And it's kind of at the whim of how they're feeling that day, is what I've been told. So even monetary donations is helpful. They also help pay for the water tanks to refill them in the encampment. So that is also something that they do. And I have met both Pastor Abraham and Barberi, who the group met with, and who walked us over to the encampment, since he is on the ground more and knows the population and is familiar with the area and the people. So he's someone that I like for our groups to know and hear from him, because he's really helpful. And he's also been involved in all of this since 2018, 2019. He has a church in Mexico as well that at one point was a shelter for migrants. So yes, I can share that information with all of you. And that is the one place that I will always uplift. They always need help, volunteers to help, and donations. They're a small organization, but they have been at it since the beginning. And another place that we visit is in McAllen, the Humanitarian Respite Center that's run by Catholic Charities that Sister Norma helped to, I think, start. And so that's one of the last places we'll go to. And they actually have space for people to stay there 24 to 48 hours max. So it is a very short term shelter, but the folks there can they get 3 meals a day, they get a space to sleep, and while they figure out their bus tickets or flights or where they're going to go to next. And they're able to get some toiletries, clothes, they have showers, they have a full industrial grade kitchen. So when our folks go, we have the opportunity to help a little as well. We can serve food alongside the migrants who are doing so. And so it's a busy place, and they always are receiving migrants. I know they're 7 days pretty much 24-hour operation. So those two are the places that I know are helping a lot. Team Brownsville is also there 7 days a week.
Fabi, maybe if you can email myself or Reverend Aaron or somebody, if you've got a list of those, and if anyone's interested, you might send any of the people with TXUUJM your email, and we can distribute that way. I know you need to log off for another meeting in like less than 10 minutes. I have one other question that came in. Maybe you could touch upon it briefly. We kind of covered a bit of it, but it was wanted to know a little bit more about the goals and hopes for participation of courts and ports after their trip. Beyond witness, what are some of the outcomes and impact they are seeing?
So is your question more, and I'm not sure I understood it correctly. Is it
Well, I think they're interested in sort of how we can spread the word. You know, we're affected. We've been there. Many of us on this meeting have, but how can we spread the word about what's happening and what we need to be doing, and even about courts and ports and so forth?
Yeah, I think one of the main things now with these bills that are going to get signed is just staying in the know of what is happening. I will be uplifting organizations that are the legal experts in some of the areas, or the community experts here in the Valley, like Lupe, like the Texas Civil Rights Project, and hopefully teaming up with them to be able to support what they need and the work that we're doing as well to educate and our folks as well. So I think it's going to be more than ever now, definitely community action and community based organizations teaming up together to each of us bring the expertise that we have and the folks that we have to work together. And as a faith-based group, then we definitely have a lens that we can utilize to help, because I have a bad feeling that things are going to get really bad really soon. And so I think it's more than ever important to stay alert. And I do write blog posts on Texas Impact website about what's happening. For Courts and Ports alumni, we have a Facebook group page where I update on things happening as well. And if folks want to come down and see for themselves what's happening, that's always helpful, because now you'll be here, you have witnessed it, and you can go back to your communities and spread the word of what the reality is.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to go to those websites. We've got in the program, we've got links to the courts and ports. If I have time, I know you've got to run here in a minute. I want to show people the Facebook page that the Reverend Aaron has. There's some great pictures. You've got some good ones too in one of your posts, but there's some good pictures to get a sense of what all is happening. And I know Reverend Aaron and some other people have talked about the future. In fact, I think Reverend Aaron was quoted recently saying we hope to have 2 statewide UU courts and ports groups that come down there. So hopefully we'll be doing a whole lot more of that in the future. Reverend Aaron,
can I speak to that for just a second?
please.
Sorry. Thank you so much. And Fabi, it's so good to see you and some of the other folks from the trip. We would be happy to arrange as many trips as there's demand from the members of TXUUJM. And just to give you all some context, in the same way, and I said this in a board meeting, in the same way that your congregations are members of the Texas UU Justice Ministry, TXUUJM is a member of Texas Impact, which is our interfaith statewide advocacy organization. And so you could go as an individual on one of their groups that's not specifically UU at any time. The UU College of Social Justice also does border trips, though those are in Arizona, but they're wonderful as well. But we will be happy to work with Fabi to arrange UU grounded group trips that help TXUUJM folks connect with each other as many as we have demand. So please feel free. I'll drop the TXUUJM email in the chat. I've asked the folks who are on the trip to think about their reflections. People are still processing. One of our members is giving a lay-led reflection in her congregation, Wildflower, this Sunday. So I think that's going to be the first one. But we asked folks to come back and tell the stories. And there's some good stuff in the chat. But so keep an eye on your TXUUJM email for more reflections and follow-up. Same with our Facebook. And then, Fabi, is there a group within Texas Impact that people can join related to this, or should they just keep an eye out and sign up for the Texas Impact emails in general? How do they stay connected with what you're sharing?
Yeah, I think you should definitely sign up with the Texas Impact like newsletter. I know B also sends out a weekly newsletter with information. We're working on updating our website because before we had the trips that for the dates available, we were using Eventbrite and people could sign up that way, but we're trying to move out of Eventbrite. So right now we don't have a space for y'all to do that. So the best part would be, or the best way to reach me is email me directly. And I'm happy to arrange if y'all have a certain date, and it doesn't have to be a big group of 10 people. In the past, I have done groups as small as when I first started back in January, I had groups of 3 or 4 and 6. So it doesn't have to be a huge group. 3 or 4 or 5 is fine. And yeah, if you want to come with the focus lens of the UU, that's perfectly fine. Like that's something I can work with you all to work on any dates that you have in mind. I'm also open to, in the past, I have had groups who couldn't come on the Monday, Tuesday. They were able to come like, I think Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I'm happy to also work with different days of the week if that works better for your group, or so I'm open to different things. We're not set in stone as to how to the dates and things like that. So yes, the best way would be to email me right now. Yeah, that's the best way to reach me.
Fantastic.
I can write it in the chat.
TXUUJM tries to amplify as much of the Texas Impact calls to action around these and other issues as we can, but we always encourage our members to also follow the communications of our partners, most of whom have a larger staff and so may communicate faster. I wanted to say also just what a faith formation experience it was to do this with a group of UUs and to really experience, we talk about abolition in our faith. We talk about the inherent worth and dignity of all people and how we're all connected. And you really experience that on the trip. And the other thing we talked about, when I was growing up in Texas, we would go down to Brownsville a lot to go to the zoo, or, you go to some of my earliest memories are of going to South Padre Island, just like half an hour from where we were staying, and just the beauty of the borderlands and the beauty of the culture and the community there. And so the over policing, creating this fear about what it is to go to the border. We want to dispel that and talk about the beauty of the communities. And so just a little side plug that if you do take one of these trips, you can also stay longer on your own and go to the natural lands that are down there, or go to the zoo, or, there's a lot that's wonderful in addition to what you witnessed that's so hard. Thank you so much, Fabi, for everything.
Exactly, Fabian. I want to hold ourselves to our promise that we would let you go at 7:45. So, I mean, you're more than welcome to stick around, but we know that you have another obligation. So thanks so much. Hopefully many of us will see you down there in Austin at different times. So thanks so much.
Yes. Thank you all for having me, and please reach out if you have any further questions. I'm happy to be a resource for you all. And I will email Dale or Erin or both of you with the information.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Okay, I do want to show you these photos. I think Reverend Aaron's multitude of photos. We can just glance through them. It gives you a good overview sense of what it was like. So bear with me. Okay, here it is. Yeah, and I can just scroll through these. I'm sure Aaron could give you detailed narratives of all of this. And I was curious, that's not the river. That's one of the little tributaries, I think, maybe as you're walking across the fence. And so they're walking there into Matamoros. And okay, here I can.
Reverend Ade was also on the trip and is one of our fantastic TXUUJM board members, just like Dale. So Reverend Ade, if you want to chime in at any point, please feel invited.
That was probably the shelter, part of the shelter, the encampment over in Matamoros, I imagine.
Yes, and the black is the water tank. And those water tanks get used up very fast, Reverend Ade. I don't know if you remember exactly. It was really a staggering amount.
$85 a day to fill one of those.
So
It
that was
lasts one day.
Yep. That was one of the potential actions that folks had talked about, going back to their congregations and maybe raising money to buy, to contribute to water. And Dale, I think we were seeing the river. It's really not much. And that was one of the heartbreaking pieces, was this photo that you're seeing right here. Those are the bright lights that they would shine on the asylum seekers encampment just on the other side of the bridge. And those, spiky wires but the thing is, you're so close. Like the stories that we heard from people about the countries they had been through and the horrors they had witnessed, the kidnappings they had survived, to get this close.
And you're standing right there looking at the river.
Right there. I mean, like that idea, like, why wouldn't you try? Because it's nothing. That riverbank, I mean, it's some muck, and then you're there and you can declare that you seek asylum from with the Border Patrol. But yeah, it's gut-wrenching to see what we've put in between people.
Is it true that Operation Lone Star was even preventing them to get to the Border Patrol? That they would stop them first sometimes? I've heard that.
I don't remember, but I wouldn't surprise me. Reverend Ade, do you remember if Fabi talked about that?
I actually don't remember her talking about Operation Lone Star.
But I promise you all, I will go. You're motivating me, Dale. I will go on Facebook and upload the pictures from day 2. This is just day 1. This gentleman was from Nicaragua, and there are certain countries that had his name was Ezekiel, and he just needed a little bit of money to get across the border, or to get his bus ticket. He was already across the border, to get his bus ticket to go where he needed to go. And
$15.
$15, and he was waiting at Team Brownsville. And he helped us carry in all of the donations that people brought from their congregations. We had 2 cars full of donations of clothes and toys and toiletries and such. And he was very sweet. And he, insisted that we come with him to watch him buy the ticket. He didn't just want to take the money. And I've been to Nicaragua, and so we talked about that a little bit. But there were a couple folks on the trip who congregants had specifically given them some cash to be able to help people in these kind of moments of just, where $15 can make every difference, I
promise you, these pictures, as good as they are, the photos, it's nothing like actually being there and feeling the energy and the tension in the various parts of this whole system that these people have to experience.
And there you get a sense. I mean, it's really very well organized. I mean, that just gives you a brief view of kind of the agenda that she puts together. Well, I think we're repeating everything. Well, look, we're almost out of time. I do have a lot of different kind of actions and some other explanations, and we're not going to get into any of that tonight. But I mean, that's why we have this up here, and that's why we encourage you to bookmark it, or you keep the link, and you can go back. That's what I always do. After every night, I'll go back and do a lot of the different actions. There's a big picture of the group out in front of the Catholic Charities Respite Center. That's the one in the McAllen. So I've got another song, and this is Bono and Edge of U2. I have some unusual musical interests, I think. But they are in, we saw Victor Jara, and he was murdered in the National Stadium. It's the National Soccer Stadium where the Gold Cup has been played, where Diane and I saw it a few years ago, and it's a beautiful soccer stadium. And U2 played there. And this video and this song, it's Mothers of the Disappeared, major movement in Latin America. Kathy's got a chat there too, has been very impactful in terms of pointing out the horrendous policies of both Argentina, Brazil, and Chile. U2 Bono has written this song, and they're singing it on the stage in front of the National Stadium to the masses, and he's got some of the mothers of the disappeared there. It's very awkward the way he's doing it, but he brings them up there with their signs. So I'm gonna play that, and Kathy got a link to the things about stuff still going on. That there are a lot of different issues happening. So, but before I start that, any other final comments? Any final words for anyone? You know, I almost lost mine.
Just thank you. This has been an important experience,
Well,
even if it's at a distance.
we didn't get any actions done, but they're there to motivate you, and there are other things that can motivate you in the longer run, and it's a long run. Okay.
Dale, do you need me to pull up the song?
Okay, can you see and hear that now?
Yeah, we got it now.
Great.
Gracias. Mi esposo Waldo Pizarro Molina, detenido desaparecido.
Oh my gosh.
Mi esposo Pedro Silva Augusto, detenido desaparecido el 9 de agosto de 1976. Mi hermano detenido el 9 de septiembre de 1987. Mi hermano Newton Morales Saavedra, detenido desaparecido el 13 de agosto de 1974.
Midnight, our sons and daughters were cut down,
Well, I wanted to get to the view of the crowd, and then you can feel the exuberance. And sort of also ironically, this was Pinochet came to power in '73, and that's where the Guajardo and many others. He was just sort of the martyr. He was very well known. Some say, well, he's been called the Bob Dylan of Latin America. How appropriate that is. But this concert was like 8 days before Pinochet resigned, and a new president came, Michelle Bachelet, a little bit later, who had actually been imprisoned by Pinochet. So it was sacrifices of people like Guajardo and others who were able to depose of the Pinochet regime. Anyway, if anybody wants to stick around and talk, we certainly can. But otherwise, everyone have a good evening. Thanks for being here. And hopefully carry some of what Fabi had to say with you, and keep up the good work.